Hey, good afternoon. It's Dwayne Richards, your host of Comm Cafe, the place where we talk. Where do we talk? We talk with entrepreneurs, small business owners. It's also for them. We talk about mindset, personal development, professional development, and occasionally, or in this case, quite frequently, recently, I bring on great guests who are subject matter experts, and they share their knowledge with me. And I think it's relevant to my guests. So today I have Neelam Dhall, and guess what? We are just joking. We're almost twins. She also is a CPA, but a CA as well. That's okay. I have no hard feelings. I am a CPA CMA, but we're all one big happy family now. She is an accredited family mediator. We'll learn about what that means. She's also an author in the upcoming book, 365, You Can't Afford a Negative Thought, the same book that I'm going to be in. And today we're going to talk about her business, Simple Solutions Mediation, I believe. Divorce coaching, not how to get a divorce, but once you've decided you're going to get divorced, how she actually assists couples in having a happy divorce, let's say. What is mediation, why you want to use a mediator, and what is divorce coaching. All right, let's get ready, friends. Grab a quick glass of water, sit back, relax, and here is my interview with Neelam. Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
I am fantastic. I stumbled there a little bit, but I think we're going to be okay. There's a lot of stuff, CPA and a family mediator. So why don't we get right into it? And how does someone who spent a good chunk of time, like myself, in corporate accounting become a family mediator?
Well, life happens, and so I'll take you back. So I became a CPA CA and did the corporate life for 20 years, worked in all facets of finance, and in the latter part of my career had the opportunity to actually get involved in negotiating multi-million-dollar contracts and managing them. I really enjoyed that work. Great experience in education. And then there was an information session available to me that just sort of popped up on how to become a family mediator. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting, because myself, having unfortunately gone through a divorce, having all this wealth of information now after, years later, you learn the family law system inside out. You learn what you should do, what you shouldn't do, pros and cons of different strategies and different options. And then here comes this information session. So I go to the information session, and it was like this bright light goes on. It's like the light bulb moment. I went, this is what I'm meant to do. Like, this is my passion. I really want to be able to help other people navigate divorce more easily than I did, with less stress and a much more affordable route than going through the court option. So I actually went back to school, took the courses, completed an internship for 6 months, and got my accreditation as a family mediator. And what's nice about having the CPA-CA designation as well is it's a really great marriage, which is kind of a funny term, but it's a great marriage of the two accreditations, because obviously I have a strong financial background. So when it comes to divorce and negotiating settlements with respect to equalization, which is basically property, what do we do with the property, and also talking about child support and spousal support issues, I have this financial background that enables me to help you through it and sort of explain it in layman's terms. What are the consequences of the different options? What are the different options? Provide information on what kinds of documentation you're going to have to provide from the legal perspective to get through everything. And then having gone through the mediation route, understanding parenting plans and different options. And then, of course, having gone through it myself, really understanding from a real world perspective what the emotions are that are involved. What does it feel like? It's one thing to have somebody talk at you and explain to you different options, but when that person really understands what you're going through, I think it really comes through in how they're able to help you.
Mm-hmm. And not that it's not a requirement that, to be a family mediator, it's not a requirement that you are divorced.
Right.
However, you know what it feels like.
Right. And that's really where the passion comes from, because I really want to see people get through it without going through a ton of turmoil. I mean, there's always going to be turmoil in a divorce. That's a natural part of it. But to be able to talk you through and help you get through it faster without dragging it on, and help you move forward in a positive way, that's really what my goal is.
Cool. All right. Fantastic. All right. Now, what is mediation? Like, I know what we talk about mediators, when you think about unions, there's mediators, like there's the person that sits in the middle. So what's the role of the mediator?
So mediation is a voluntary process. It's also confidential. And what the mediator does, you can think of them as the facilitator. So they're this wealth of legal information, and they don't give legal advice, but what they do is they help you, the two of you, come to an agreement, a negotiation of the items that you want to mediate. So, typically you'll see a divorcing family who will need to talk about, what does the parenting plan look like? When are the children with dad? When are the children with mom? How are the holidays split, etc.? There's a lot of issues to go through. They also need to talk about child support. What does that look like? What does the law say? How are you going to work that out in a way that makes sense for your family? What does spousal support look like if that's something that's in your scenario? What does the property situation look like? How does that look for equalization? And equalization is just the fancy term for splitting up the property. And the mediator, what's nice about mediation is it gives you flexibility. So it's different than the court system, because the court system is very adversarial, right? Typically, when you go to court, there's a winner and there's a loser. And holistically, that's not a great way to go, because what it ends up doing is creating more angst and more anger in the family dynamic, because somebody lost while somebody might have won. Whereas when you go to mediation, it's much more collaborative. The two of you are going to this mediator. You can bring a lawyer if you want to. You don't have to. My clients, typically, most of them don't. You will go to a lawyer for some legal advice, because what you want to do is come armed to the mediation with the knowledge of what your rights and your obligations are, because the more knowledge you have, the better you can negotiate a settlement that makes sense for you. So in terms of being more flexible, I use the example of the parenting plan. So let's talk about Christmas, for example. For many people, Christmas is a very important time of year. And in a court setting, it might be that the order is, okay, mom gets children on even numbered years Christmas Day, dad gets children on odd numbered years Christmas Day, and off you go. Now, probably both parents are not happy every other year because they don't see their kids on Christmas Day. If you go to mediation, instead of what might have been a cookie cutter order from a judge, you guys get to decide what Christmas looks like for you and what makes sense for your family. So perhaps mom's family celebrates Christmas with a Christmas morning brunch, and maybe dad's family celebrates Christmas as Christmas dinner. There's nothing stopping you from deciding, okay, mom will have the kids Christmas morning, dad will have the kids Christmas evening. And now the kids get the best of both worlds. They get to see both families. Both parents are reasonably happy because they still get to see their children on Christmas Day at the time that's most important for them. And now you have a solution to your family dynamic that makes a lot more sense for you than what you might have gotten in court. So, and instead of everybody walking away really angry and frustrated and anxious and all kinds of negative emotions, you walk away with something you can live with. I mean, it's never perfect. It's a divorce, right? It's difficult for everybody. But in this situation with the mediation, you two have now worked together to come up with a solution for you two and your children that works best.
Right. And the great thing is it's a tailored, as much as it can be, it's a personalized, tailored agreement.
Right.
The key, as I'm learning personally as well, is that it's still important to have that document to go back, that fall back to document. So don't say, hey, it's great, we're doing, this year we don't need an agreement because we can just agree on it. Well, sometimes things change down the road, And it's nice to have that agreement in place to fall back on, to say, okay, this is how we, when everything was wonderful, this is what we agreed upon.
Absolutely. And the way that works is when you go to the mediator, come to an agreement on whatever the issues are that you mediated, the mediator will then write up a memorandum of understanding, and it doesn't talk about all of the discussions or sidebars or anything. It's just specifically what the two of you have agreed to, finalized into a court order. So like in the mediation, it's important to remember nothing is binding. The purpose of the mediation is to bring you two together in a supportive environment that basically breeds positivity, where it helps you get through those hard discussions in a more calm fashion than what you might do in court, and it helps to sort of calm the nerves, calm the any of the negativity. And then once you get the agreement and you get your lawyer to put that into a formal court order, it's exactly what you just said. So there might be some time where you guys are getting along so great, you don't even follow it, because in the moment there's something that comes up and you want to be flexible. Then there might be some times in life when two of you are not getting along so well, and that's your fallback position, because you've now turned it into a court order. And really the goal of the mediator is to make an agreement for you that can stand the test of time. It's not just for this year, it's not just for this set of 6 months or something. It's something that you guys can really live by moving forward for a long period of time.
That's great. Now, what's the number one advantage of working with a mediator versus, I know, because let's give a quick example. There's I'm aware of 3 different routes. So we can take the full, my ex-wife and I each have our lawyers, and we take the traditional, my lawyer, her lawyer. That's one route. There's collaborative lawyers. So there's lawyers that work collaborative where there's no plan to go to court. And then there's mediation. Is that kind of the 3 routes of going down, or is there something?
Yeah, pretty much. And we can talk a little bit about each. So with the lawyers, certainly cost comes into all of this. Now, you have to figure, if you go the lawyer route and it's a battle in court, you are paying your lawyer. So the husband is paying the lawyer an hourly rate, typically $400 to $500 an hour. It might vary depending on the lawyer, but something in that range. Then the wife is paying another lawyer $400 to $500 an hour. So multiply by 2. And when you attend court, so you're paying the lawyer for every communication by the hour. So any emails, any phone calls, any venting that you happen to do, plus you're paying them to prepare any documents, to give you legal advice on your rights and obligations and what you need to do in court. And then when you go to court, you're paying for their time as well as speaking for you at court. So unfortunately, sometimes, or many times, you don't actually have a specific appointment. So if you were doing something like a motion, you may show up for 10 o'clock, but your particular case doesn't get heard until 2 p.m. So you are now paying your lawyer to sit and wait with you until 2 p.m. in addition to speaking at the motion. So it becomes very, very costly of a process. And unfortunately, sometimes people, particularly in the beginning of their separation, when they go to the lawyer, they start venting. It's not really about the legals. It becomes about, oh my God, he did this. Oh my God, she said that. And while the lawyer may be very empathetic, that's not actually moving you forward from a legal standpoint. What it's doing is spending your money on their hourly rate, but not moving you forward, which is where the divorce coach comes in, but I'll speak about that in a bit. Then in terms of collaborative law, you're absolutely right. There are a lot of different professionals that can help you through. So in some circumstances, there might be a complicated financial situation in which they have accredited financial professionals that can help you in specifics. So maybe it's even a business valuation if someone owns their business, because you need to understand what is the true value of that business and how does that impact when we're dividing property, how does that impact that situation? There are also collaborative lawyers who, you're right, they don't want to litigate, they don't want to go to court, and they will help you. There are lawyers that are mediators. And then there are also social workers who are mediators, and they typically would focus on your parenting plan and the more relationship type of issues. Then there are people like me. So I've got the finance background, so I understand the financials inside out. but I also can do the parenting plans. I've gone through, become accredited as a family mediator. So with a collaborative person like myself, you don't need multiple professionals necessarily. I can do pretty much all of the issues. Again, there's always going to be a situation which might require multiple people to help you out. And then there's, when you say just the mediator, so like I mentioned, the mediator will always recommend that you obtain independent legal advice. And it's good to do that. You know, the ideal scenario is before, during, and after. And why is that? Because before, you're talking to a lawyer and understanding what are your rights, what are your obligations, what are the things that you need to know to go into that mediation armed with the knowledge that you need to negotiate a good deal for yourself. And then during, there might be some questions that come up. Maybe you're talking about a pension and how that gets split up. Maybe you're talking about other assets, you know, the family cottage or the family property, and what are the different options. The mediator can give you legal information, but they are not allowed to give you legal advice. So they might say, you know, there might become an issue that you're talking about that's a little bit complicated. They might say to you, listen, let's park that one. The two of you go off and talk to your lawyers, obtain the information you need, and we'll talk about that in our next session. And then basically the mediator's goal is to help the two of you discuss all of the issues you choose to mediate. There are options. Sometimes people can mediate through every issue of the divorce, and quite often they can do that. Sometimes there might be a couple of contentious issues that people are just not willing to budge on. And so then the beauty of mediation is the things you know that you can reach agreement on, you get those done, resolved, and out of the way. And now those 2 or 3 or 1 issue that you need to go to court for, it's only that issue. And now the mediator has cut your costs significantly. Because when you talk about the cost with the mediator as compared to a lawyer, we talked about how each party to the marriage is spending on their own lawyers, and so multiplying those costs. Whereas with the mediator, you're splitting the cost. So typically a mediator's hourly rate is much lower than that of a lawyer, and you're splitting it probably in half. In some situations you might negotiate how you're splitting it, but you're splitting that cost. And so now you're both incented. If you're both attending the mediation and you're both paying for it, you really have an incentive to resolve in a reasonable time frame instead of dragging it out. So mediation is a fraction of the cost of a legal battle in court, which is always a good thing.
Fantastic. All right, and I would be giving you a disservice. I didn't ask, what in your opinion, what's the number one advantage of working with a mediator?
So to me, it's the holistic scenario of it's really a much more positive scenario. You're talking about, again, a family coming to you, trying to resolve in a way that doesn't create more negativity, more angry, he said, she said, I win, you lost. It's not that. It's they're coming together, and as difficult as this situation is, they're both of the mindset that we want to work this out quickly. We want to work this out in a way that is best for our children. And we know that if we're working together, that has to be better for our children than working against each other in court.
Fantastic. All right. Divorce coaching.
So often we'll have, when we're going through a divorce, we have very well-meaning family and friends who are trying to support us, but many times they can end up fueling the fire instead of sort of calming the situation, because maybe you've got that person who says, oh, take him for everything he's got, or make sure you get this out of her. But that's actually not going to help you, because what it's going to do is it's going to fuel the fire into making you more enraged and potentially causing the battle to be much more negative than it needs to be, and maybe you end up in court with this really bad legal battle that you didn't have to have. And as well, we talked about how often in the beginning, you're so angry, you start venting to your lawyer, and it becomes almost like a therapy session with your lawyer, but their job is not to give you therapy. Their job is to help you from a legal standpoint resolve. And so where the divorce coach comes in is they're that person that you can vent to. And, sometimes there are things that you may not want to talk about with your family or friends that are very personal, but you need to get it out. Everybody needs to talk to somebody and just get it off your chest. That's what the divorce coach is for. You vent to that person. Again, it's a lot less costly than venting to a lawyer, but that person gives you an objective viewpoint. So maybe you need to bounce ideas. Maybe you need to talk about how this is going to look for your kids. How is this going to look with the financials? How are you feeling? What are my best options? Again, a person like me, having the financial background, having the mediation background, having the personal life story of understanding what it's like to go to court and what it's like to, face a judge, can guide you. Like you come to me with what your concerns are, and I can give you options. I can point you in the right direction. I can help you calm down in a moment where you might just be so overwhelmed with an emotion that you end up doing or saying something that might cause trouble down the road. The purpose is kind of like holding hands and kind of like a thinking partner for you that you can bounce the ideas off of in a way that will help you go down a more positive path than you might have otherwise. And for many people, they find having that divorce coach actually helps them contain the costs because they got all the negativity out with the divorce coach and they were able to get back onto the rational path and set the emotions aside because they were able to get them out of the way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Let's shift gears here a little bit. What's your since we were both at the University of Waterloo, what's the fondest memory of your time back in university? Because lots of people say, hey, do I really need to go to university? Because do you need a university degree to be a mediator?
You don't. I guess it's easier because you need certain requirements that you need to fulfill to become accredited. And that cuts down on the requirements because you've got that education behind you. But my fondest memory of university is probably all of the friends that I made and just living life with them. Like, it was just such a nice time in my life, in addition to school and lots of work. But, then you balance that off with hanging out with friends and just breathing after you had a big exam or what have you. And, some of those friends have become lifelong friends. And it's really neat to look back and say, oh, I feel old sometimes when I say it, but I've known you more than half my life. This is great, right? We've gone through so much life with each other.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. An accounting designation. What has, other than being able to do your own taxes, what do you think the skill sets that you learned through your career as an accountant, what's the number one skill that you think that's provided you that makes you a fantastic mediator?
So like I said, having the financial background, understanding how to make a financial statement, because you have to do that. And it can be very overwhelming, actually, particularly for a person who may not be used to dealing with numbers. It's second nature for me to do the number crunching. So helping you through, what I do is I help you through, okay, here are the assets and liabilities for each of you. Here's what it might look like if you were to split them. And here are the potential options that you have. Many people can't do that on their own. And if you don't go through that with a mediator who can do that, you'll have to do that with your lawyer, which can be also very expensive. And if you wanted, sometimes you want to play out what if scenarios, right? What if I trade this for this? What if I trade that for that? If you want to do that with the lawyer, it takes a lot of time and you're going to charge for that. And with me, I can do it pretty quickly on the fly with you and really just have a conversation over what does that look like. And also, being trained as a chartered accountant, you have quite the eye for detail, and I can help you through, these are the documents you're going to need to attach to that financial statement, and just be able to hold your hand and walk you through what you need to do. I don't think it comes very easy to some people, and that's natural. If you don't have a financial mind, that's very natural to be in that situation. So that's where I add the value.
Fantastic. Okay, I almost forgot. Let's not forget the last point is soon to be published author. So,
yes.
what does having the upcoming or author title mean to you? What did that do for you personally?
Well, it enabled me to share a story about a big challenge that I faced in my life. And my goal with that also, just with the mediation, is to be able to help people. If people can read that story and it gives them some kind of inspiration to help them move through whatever challenge they're facing, then I will have done my job in writing that story, because everybody has a story. Everybody has challenges in their life. They may look different, but they're difficult in that moment for you. And so if there's something that resonates with the reader in that situation, then I'm really happy if that can help them.
Wonderful. And, if people want to learn more about being an author, they can definitely reach out to you or to me to learn about how they too can become an author in the book 365, You Can't Afford a Negative Thought. All right. Not quite parting thoughts, but are you a big reader? You do you read a lot?
I do read, absolutely.
All right. What's that, if someone was looking to do kind of that career change, going from employee to self-employed, what's the book that you would recommend someone to start to read with?
Well, I think one of the big things with becoming an entrepreneur is communication and networking. So one big book, I think a lot of people have read it, and so have I, is called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of the chapters in there is talking about seek first to understand and then to be understood. And it's a really great lesson with networking. It's all in how you make people feel. It's all about listening to the other person. It's not about getting your story out there. It's about listening to them and understanding them. And really, that's really important in my world as a mediator, because for me to get the best agreement, I need to really hear what's going on. Because sometimes when they're bickering or fighting, it's not actually about the words that they're saying. It's about the context and what's actually behind the fight. And there was a story that I'd heard somewhere, I think it was actually in my mediation studies, and it was about an orange. 2 children were fighting about an orange on a playground, and the teacher comes by and she cuts the orange in half and gives them each half an orange, but neither child was happy. And so why were they not happy? Because the one child wanted the rind to make a recipe. The other child was thirsty and wanted to drink the juice from the orange. Had the teacher asked and listened to what was actually going on, she could have made them both happy by splitting it appropriately. So that's sort of the lesson, is to really understand.
I like that a lot. And I think we may leave us with that thought. That is a great little lesson about, and can be applied in multiple ways. And just, it's like, you're right. Seek first and ask great questions, or ask good questions. Just ask the question before jumping and assuming that our solution is the solution that the client is looking for.
Absolutely.
Okay, so one last thing is, how can people find you or get in touch with you if they want to learn more about mediation, or if they need to refer you to someone, or they need to use your services for themselves? How can people find you?
So my business is called Simple Solutions Mediation, and they can find me at simplesolutionsmediation.ca. It's all one word, or ssmediation@yahoo.com. Or they can phone me, 416-721-9575.
I love it when my guests just say, here's my phone number. Make it really easy for people. And I'm sure you maybe learned that from when your good friend Anita was on last week. But I find it challenging that sometimes I just want to pick up the phone and call people. And if I can't do that, I go to the next person. Because
100%.
Hey, we're in business. Let's make it super easy for people to reach out and get together and see if we can help each other. So thank you for being so forward and sharing that with our listeners, that if they want to reach out to you, just pick up the phone and call. Make it easy.
Absolutely. And I think, especially in this business, you need a personal touch. You need to talk to somebody, and you need to talk to someone that's the right fit for you, right? There are different personalities and mediators, and the two of you need to mesh for that to be the right mediator for you. And so picking up the phone is ideal to figure that out.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today on Comm Cafe. Hey, people, if you like this episode, don't forget to share it with your friends. Hey, if you know someone who's going through some tough times with their marriage, hey, sometimes a mediator can help them maybe before they even have to go down the divorce route. Share the episode, and you never know. You may change someone's life by doing so. Thanks again for joining us today. I've been your host, Dwayne Richards. Have a wonderful day.